Hello there, people, and welcome back to Unfiltered. Today is very, very special for me. Today is so special for me because what I'm going to talk about goes back in my life when I started fighting for this, 1973. I'm sure 100% of you were not born, especially the kids who follow me. Since 1973, I've had this thing in my heart. And I've actually been agitating, but at no point so we have done what we could. So now let's move on, because they're making you know. And I had just gotten to that point, and had actually moved on. And then one day I was at the Cactus Creek. Before then, my friend Bernard had called me and said, not Bernardi, Bernardo. My friend Bernard called me and says he wants to come to see me back. He has some friends that want to come and see me. I said, sure, I'm available. He told me there were kids. Well, at my age, everybody's a kid. I said, some young guys want to come and see me. So they came, and we had a meeting, and folks, I was shocked. Something that I had always wanted, and I had spoken so much about, like I said at the beginning, it had gotten to the point where I said, Chiche, right now, dear, I've done my part. Let me go and chill. These young guys came in. And in our conversation, I realized that they are also feeling the same thing that I felt like 40 years plus ago. He was feeling the same thing. So I was shocked. I'll introduce him soon, but allow me small. I was shocked. And the reason I was shocked was that, wow, I didn't expect people from that generation to be concerned about that issue, but they were. So shocked on one point, impressed on the other side. Impressed that even they, as young as they were, had that in mind. Folks, now let me break your suspense. I'm talking about my advocacy that the name Kotoka should be dropped from our airport. I've done a show on it. I've done shows on it. Drop that name. There's so much I can say about Nkrumah, but we'll be doing this show. So when a person like this leads a country and an airport is built, or they want to name the airport, do you name the airport after the clown who took money from the CIA to overthrow Kwame Nkrumah? Isn't it a disgrace? And that's what I put in my tweet. That at the risk of angering many, because I know many people will be angry, because there are many people from different persuasions and political thinking who condemn Kwame Nkrumah, there's no tomorrow, whatever. Me, I'm giving you my opinion, and I'm telling you that these are the facts. Well, what value does Kotoka have in the scheme of national events? I hear he was one of the commanders of some battalion and something like that. But what was his locus before then? What can you refer to? So Kotoka does this and that and that and that. So he had that national value, and it is entitled. We are entitled to name the airport. There's nothing like that. If there's something that like that, I don't know, please fill me in with your comments that he did this and that and that and that. All I know that he was a member of the NLC, the National Liberation Council, that was led by Harley. And there was a Frifa, and there was a Kotoka, and there were, I don't remember the names. These were the big hawks of the National Liberation Council, and Kotoka was one of them. I think he might have made the announcement that Nkrumah has been overthrown. I'll double check that and let you know. But I think he probably, the morning of the announcement that Nkrumah has been overthrown, either him or Harley, one of them made that announcement. But that's their claim to fame. They made the announcement. And I am saying this, and I keep saying it, that I do not think that the national airport should be named after somebody who basically disrupted the Pan-African movement and led Kwame Nkrumah in exile. The naming, as I said, I hear people are wondering around that they should rename the airport Kwame Nkrumah International Airport. I stand by that. I stand by that, and you can see from my tweet that I tweeted some years ago. Even before the tweet that time there was no social media, so I just talked about it verbally. And it's interesting how I've always been against the idea that the airport hasn't been named after Kwame Nkrumah. Later on, somebody came to explain that when the counter coup happened and where there were shootings and things, that was the area that Kotoka died. When the counter coup, there was a counter coup that tried to overthrow the NLC. You know, the National Liberation Council, NLC, they overthrew Kwame Nkrumah. You know, and then there was a counter coup that wanted to overthrow the NLC, led by one guy called Yeboah. I think there was a Yeboah and Achekakra. But evidently, there were gunfires everywhere, and at the airport, I think that's where Kotoka lost his life. So that was a landmark where he died. But naming the airport was not because he had done anything magnificent for this country. And when I say the Charlie case, and don't say that, or you make the Evers angry, I said, who said that? If you like, let's do a poll, and you see many people from Everland who agree with what I'm saying. And if they don't, it's okay. But we don't name a person based on travel affiliation. We don't. We name a person and after something substantial. And I don't think that anybody deserves the name on the now Terminal 3 called Kotoka International Airport. No. So I associate with all the calls to rename the airport. And when they came, I was surprised that they were talking about how they feel that we have wronged Kwame Nkrumah for naming the airport to the one that overthrew him. I said, my goodness, you're speaking my mind. So, the Mekano, I'm going to introduce this young gentleman who, if you will, has reawakened that consciousness and spirit that let's look closely at this name and do something about it. He's here with me today. Because on I think it was 3rd of February, we had this announcement from Ayariga. Take a look at this.
We are changing the name of our airport from Kotoka International Airport to Accra International Airport. So a bill will be brought by the Minister for Transport for the name of the airport to be changed from Kotoka International Airport to Accra International Airport.
There you go. Well, listen to this. They hadn't changed the name to Kwame Nkrumah International Airport, but that's okay. It is not Kotoka International Airport. But let me now talk to my guest. Let me introduce him. Show some love for my dear son, Stephen Odatafio.
Thank you very much for having me, sir.
It's such a pleasure to have you. It's an honor.
It's an honor to see you again.
And Stephen, by the way, when we launched this, it was at the Airport View Hotel.
Airport View Hotel, yes.
And he gave a speech. And I'll be playing you parts of the speech. And I was listening to him, and I said to myself, hey, KSM, me feel some anuati. Honestly, Stephen, let's say, me feel some mekasapao, but one more thing. Charlie. No, I was so impressed with you.
Thank you.
And I was impressed not just with what you were saying, but the subject matter of what you were talking about. Why did you get up, as young as you are? And Nkrumah was born, he was the prime minister, he was overthrown, he gone and died in exile. Even when he died, you were not born. Yeah. So what is it that triggered you to begin this crusade that something was wrong? Let me leave you to talk now. I've spoken a lot. Now it's your turn.
Thank you so much. And, good morning, afternoon and evening, depending on where you're going to be watching this, to your incredible listeners. I think the whole inspiration that has built up for the past, 10 years. When I completed Achimota School, I had the opportunity to pursue my university education at Ashesi University. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first thing I saw at the door of the library in Ashesi was about this club called the Africa Renaissance Movement. Mm-hmm. And there was a very bold statement about what this Africa Renaissance Movement club stood for. And I remember the caption very well. It says, "We are a movement of highly motivated individuals with a passion to make a difference in Africa." So I said, well, I want to be part of this club. So
with a passion to make a difference for Africa.
For Africa, exactly.
Okay.
So I said, then I want to be part of this club because it's always been in me wanting to do something. And I'm from a high school that has already produced about 3 or 4 presidents, and where Kwame Nkrumah even schooled in Achimota. And I said, look, I want to be part of this club. I reached out to the then president at the time, and I went straight and told them that I want to lead the club. And they said, you can't just come and tell us you want to take over this club. Yes, because apparently they had been defunct and unoperational for, I think, 2 or 3 years or so. And usually they would only meet to have projects. And it was at this point that I realized that to understand the whole concept of African Renaissance, you need to understand the very individuals that led it. And that's what got me reading about Jomo Kenyatta, Julius Nyerere, Nnamdi Azikiwe, the Monrovia Alliance, and all these other things. And of course, Kwame Nkrumah was at the helm of it. And we did several projects. It was great. We were the most popular club in Ashesi, had even more funds than the Ashesi Student Council. It was great. But then we had the largest following also of young people who then started providing teaching and non-teaching assistance to underprivileged schools surrounding the old Ashesi campus. So Rangoon Basic School, we used to go there and provide support to these kids because I wanted to change the whole narrative of what African Renaissance really means. It's actually action, doing, making an impact. And I think that stayed with me until I finished Ashesi. And so starting my career, I think I said, look, I need to read a lot about Kwame Nkrumah. And so just 2 years ago, because I've been procrastinating this, and that fire in me bent down a bit. And I started reading about his story, his autobiography. I also read the biography, and the biography actually struck me. And the last 2 chapters, especially where I noticed how he died in isolation in Bucharest, Romania, broke me. Literally lying on his bed, completely weak, unable to move. And this was the African of the millennium, dejected by every person that he held dear. The worst thing that could happen is to pass away without your wife by your side, especially when she's alive. To pass away without your kids by your side, especially when they're alive. And he was deprived of all that. And I think that struck me the first time. And then last year, around January, I started to pay a visit to his village because I'd always wanted to do it and I had some time on my hands. And I got there and I went to a very reflective moment and I said, look, I'm going to do something for you.
So what was it about the village that you wanted to find out? Why did you go to the village?
First of all, I'd never been there. I've been to the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park. And I also understood that the village or where he stayed and where he grew up was also another tourist destination. I was like, look, this is long overdue.
Let me go and see.
I cannot have been head of an African Renaissance movement and not even see where our founding father pretty much lived and grew up. And I think it was also another emotional moment for me. And I said, look, but I didn't know what I was going to do then. So around August, something said, look, this Kotoka name, I travel a lot where I work. And every time I keep hearing Kotoka International Airport, the plane is descending, you get there when you are leaving. I was like, Then I did understand the history of exactly who Kotoka was. But even as to how it was named, I had to dig in a little. So it was from August where I was like, look, this is not right. Something must be done about it. So I said I was going to do a press conference or post on my social media on the birthday of Nkrumah. And I procrastinated. Things fear shivered down my spine or whatever. And then I said, look, let's do it December, when people from the diaspora are coming so they can know exactly why it's Kotoka and why it shouldn't be Kotoka. And I said, look, it's Christmas. I've had a long year. Let me rest. And then January came. And then even the thought that it was going to be exactly 60 years only came in January. And I said, then we have to do it.
60 years since his overthrow.
Since his overthrow in 24th February 1966. And so the coming 24th February 2026 will be exactly 60 years. And I said, maybe this has been some force, on my shoulders, impressing upon the need for us to revive this discussion. So I started looking into who has done it before because I needed some sort of, encouragement. If it was going to be only me for the first time, then that would be more scary. So I was happy to learn that you had done something about it. Kwesi Pratt had mentioned it. Samia Nkrumah, of course, had been mentioning it. And even General Asedu Nketia had also mentioned it at some point. And I said, okay, at least I have some backing. So let's see how best we can do it. And I called a few friends and I said, I need somebody who can help me find some of these people. And funny enough, and luckily enough, one thing led to another. And I happened to have visited you to tell you that, look, we want to do this. I prepared a speech. And, I said, look, can you take a look at it? Will it fly? Is it controversial? I also didn't want to sound political because that's the last thing I wanted to communicate.
I saw that. Yeah. I saw that.
So that's how we got to the point of deciding to do it. In fact, the 19th of January, which was when we finally did it, we're supposed to do it the week before. And again, I was like, let's push it again.
Was something, what was going on? Were you in conflict whether doing it was the right thing to do, or you were afraid that there would be a backlash? What exactly were you going through?
Yeah, I think it wasn't the internal conflict. That I was absolutely sure, right? And sometimes I would delay it, hoping that, sometimes when you have an idea to start a business, something innovative, that if you don't do it quickly, somebody else will do it. So I was like, maybe either Nkrumah will appear to somebody or an angel of God will appear and just be like, look, go and do it and tell Stephen that he should have done it. And I realized that, look, it's never going to happen. Start it and do it. But I think it was more of the fear of the reaction from those who would disagree. And I also felt that maybe I may not have done my research enough where there could be surprises as to why the name had to remain Kotoka. And I think I haven't had anything of that sort since. The reactions have been divided, but more skewed towards those who support it against those who pretty much have reservations about it.
We've had this Kotoka, General Kotoka's name on the airport, and suddenly it is being changed. What is it? After it's Kotoka International Airport, Accra. So Accra is still there. I'm not suggesting any other name. I'm saying that the name Kotoka International Airport, Accra is already there. Accra is already there. So you don't need to remove Kotoka's name from there. So if you come to Accra, or even in the country, how many prominent Voltarians have their names on national assets or national monuments? This is the only thing the people of Volta region can also at least see as something that recognizes heroism from the Volta region.
Renaming of Kotoka and those, they are just useless, they are baseless. Waste of taxpayers' money, and that's not what we need.
I think it's a good idea. I'll support it.
You support the name change?
Say again?
You support the name change?
Yeah, I do. I support it. I think that it should be known as the Accra International Airport.
Okay. So you think it's a step in the right direction?
I think so. I'll support it.
It used to be called Accra International Airport anyway. That's why when you're going to fly, you see the ACC. So that has been before. So when the name goes back to Accra International Airport, for whatever reason, I would believe that the reasons are clear, the reasons are politically accurate, the reasons are very nationalistic.
But all the same, it's been a fantastic ride to this point, and I have no regrets at all. Yeah.
Fantastic. Neither do I. And we're saying, well, in your speech, you made some very important things. I thought you mentioned some names of presidents that were have been named. The airports have been named after. Give me a few, then we'll continue.
Yeah. So I literally started the research into how to establish the basis for my argument, and I wanted to first find out that for all the airports in the world, are there any that are named after an individual who overthrew a revolutionary or an iconic figure that led their country to independence? And I realized that there were only 2 in the world, interestingly enough. But there was none apart from the 2, which means that every single country in the world had either named their airport after the location in which it is or after an iconic or revolutionary figure. And the only 2 airports that were named after individuals who overthrew the founding fathers of those nations were Togo, Nyasingbe Yadema, and then also the coup maker in Algeria, who overthrew the first president of Algeria. Interestingly enough, the reason why those names have stayed is because you can accrue some sort of developmental project and familiarity with those names. Nyasingbe has been in power, I think, for 40 years before he handed over. So he was a regular face in Togolese politics. And you can trace a lot to what he's done because he's been the face of Togolese politics before he passed. And of course, the same for the Algerian coup maker who overthrew their founding president. Apart from that, every one of those who overthrew their founding presidents are not known anywhere by anybody in the countries where those founding presidents were overthrown, except for Ghana, where Kotoka has lived on the lips of Ghanaians for 60 good years, and that had to come to a stop.
So that was the motivation.
That was the prime motivation, because it made the argument strong, it made it apolitical, it made it deeply moral. And I think that is where I was like, that's the energy, that's the spirit I need. And when you told me that you had done that piece on it, I went and I looked and I said, if anybody comes to me, I'll be like, but quick, KSM has also, but ideally there was a lot of comfort from the fact that a lot of work had been done before that. I was also aware of the Democracy Hub that had presented a petition to the Supreme Court. My approach was not to go to the Supreme Court and duplicate that effort. There hadn't been any petition to Parliament and the leadership that I had indicated in my speech. And I thought we could then have a simultaneous fight towards that name drop. They handling the Supreme Court and then me taking on Parliament and our leadership. And I think it's turned out beautifully well.
I didn't expect this kind of reaction so soon, because the procedure that you have planned is you do the speech, you launch this whole thing, and then you present a petition and go to the third step. And after the speech, the calls, the reactions, and then next thing I know, somebody was telling me that, hey, Charlie, the name has been dropped. And like, folks like Kwesi Pratt are extremely upset because they insist it should be Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes.
History is history, and I know that the choice has been made to rename it Accra International Airport. There are some of us who think it should bear another name.
Which is?
And that name is Kwame Nkrumah.
Yes.
Which I do too. But I also know that there'll be so much noise created around it, and it will take away the essence of celebrating him.
Yes.
So for now, let's be neutral. At least it's not the traitor who toppled him. It's Accra International Airport. So I take that. And I know, and I can't say anytime soon or anything, but trust me, maybe you will live to see it. Trust me. Naming it Accra is the first step. But trust me, eventually it's going to go back to Kwame Nkrumah.
I think it's always a two-way street. Because the very person that led the redevelopment of that airfield into an international airport with an initial 500,000 passengers coming through our country and creating the first source of revenue for the airport was Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Even him at the time was careful not to name it after himself. And when we hear calls about should everything be about Kwame Nkrumah, even Kwame Nkrumah is saying that, look, even that airport, I named it Accra International Airport. So it's not like I want it to be named after me. But if there's anybody whose name is more deserving of it, then it should be him, because he was the one that sought the funding, secured the funding, and redeveloped the airport. So we appreciate the efforts of government to start the process of naming
the process has
International Airport.
The process has started.
Yes.
And besides, should anything be named after Kwame Nkrumah? I mean, don't get carried away. Even sitting in somewhere, the BBC named him is it the Black Man of the Millennium?
Yes, the African of the Millennium.
African of the Millennium.
Yes.
At least, even if you set apart what he did to get the airport going, the role this man has played in Africa, and not only in Africa, even considering all the blacks in that diaspora. As I was reading, and I realized that the reason why he was a threat to even America was that he was inspiring then, they called them the Negroes, African Americans then. They were like, hey, there's a leader from Africa he was getting the attention.
Yes.
We must begin to build immediately our own continental common market. For it is easy for anyone who studies the common market organization closely to realize that the common market is aimed at harnessing the African countries to satisfy the profit lust of the imperialist bloc and to prevent us from following an independent neutralist policy. It is easy to see that the imperialists and the colonialists are determined to retain the African countries in the position of suppliers of cheap raw materials. If we do not resist this threat, and if we throw in our lot with the common market, we shall doom the economy of Africa to a state of perpetual subjection to the economy of Western Europe. We must each see ourselves as part of Africa in order that we may face colonialist imperialism and its new form, neo-colonialism, on a continent-wide front. Africa is rich and not poor.
Martin Luther King came to Ghana. Malcolm X was here. So there was like, this man is going to actually reset the black race.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's get rid of him. So even for that reason alone, if we decide to name our airport after him, for me it's fine. But congratulations, like I said in the beginning, honestly, I had reached a point and asked Tinchi, you know. I didn't expect, you blindsided me.
It was the longest 10 minutes of my life. I won't lie to you. That speech was the longest 10 minutes of my life.
Yeah.
I wanted to end as soon as possible.
Really?
And go back into my house and just sleep it off. You know, and I'm impressed with how it turned out.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And once again, let me say this, the speech was spectacular. Let me just show a little clip, not the whole thing. Sure. I just want to play just a little clip for the people to see why I was so... Take a look at this.
The name at the doorpost of our republic must be that which unites us, that which uplifts us, and that which we are proud, that which we are proud to present to the world. And so I cannot and we cannot be proud of the name Kotoka International Airport when he's not associated with any major developmental project in our country. We cannot be proud of the name Kotoka when his coup d'etat created an abyss of political instability for the next 30 years in Ghana's history, allowing countries like South Korea to leapfrog us. We cannot be proud of the name Kotoka when every single airport in this world is either named after the city in which they are located or after an iconic or revolutionary figure. And so we have Jomo Kenyatta Airport, the founding father and the first president of the Republic of Kenya. We have Julius Nyerere Airport, the founding father and the first president of Tanzania. We have Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport, the founding father and the first president of Nigeria. And just next door, Houphouët-Boigny Airport, the founding father and the first president of La Côte d'Ivoire. Where is Dr. Nkrumah, the African of the millennium? A man whose name and whose statue boldly sits at the forecourts of the AU, but in his own country, sits in the shadows of the bushes in our museums. This can't continue.
So there you have it, folks. And this is why I was so fascinated and interested. And for anyone to come up at this time, from your age group, for me, meant a lot. You know, it meant a lot. And I noticed that you carefully petitioned the thing on some moral basis. And you didn't go into anything partisan. Because afterwards, when the questions started coming, they couldn't even say anything because you didn't go that, you didn't toe that line. Congratulations.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
It was an excellent speech.
Thank you. I think I spent a number of weeks meditating on this. And I remember any time I try to meditate on the key points of what I wanted to communicate, I'd always be like, I'm going to mess this up.
you know, you gave it to me to check it out. And I remember what I said. I said, listen, I won't add anything. I won't take anything out. This is great. Go ahead. And I meant it. And trust me, I'm a speech critic. I will find something. If anything at all, I have to show that there's something that I maybe knew that you did. Something.
I didn't stick to the speech. Remember the conclusion?
Yes. I was wondering why, but hey, whatever you delivered worked perfectly. So I'm saying for a speech to come to me, and I said, listen, I'm not taking anything away, and I'm not adding anything. Trust me, it was awesome.
I appreciate that.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
And Ghana, for now, we hear that is going to be called the Accra International Airport, and that is fantastic. AIA. Now, when I get my ticket, I won't see Kotoka on it. And Mommy, you had a few more.
Yeah.
About a few years, we come home.
3.4 million passengers.
3.4 pass through every time.
Would no longer be
here.
Hearing the
you are not descending onto
the name.
Yeah.
Kotoka International.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you so
Keep
much.
up the great work.
I also want to take the opportunity to thank a few people.
Sure, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to take this opportunity to thank, first and foremost, the President of the Republic, Honorable John Dramani Mahama. It clearly shows that he listened to it, or his attention was brought to it. Of course, the majority leader gave the press conference, but it was on the back of a decision that had been made, I'm sure at cabinet level, with the approval and the stamp of the president that we must effect this immediately. The speed of it is what I must also commend him for.
Yes.
And as I had mentioned in my speech, for 60 years, we've left this question unanswered. We've had great presidents come through, some pro-Nkrumah, some anti-Nkrumah, some mid-Nkrumah. And there's always been this at their door. And Mr. President will forever go down in history as the man that awoke the spirit of Dr. Nkrumah after 60 years of his slumber and his wandering away from this land. I'm very sure that Dr. Nkrumah will be home the very day that airport name is dropped and restored to Accra International Airport. To his leadership, I know that there's a next step to pass this bill and present it to the president, and I'm very confident that they'll do a great job at it. To the foreign minister, to the transport minister, I'm extremely proud of pushing this agenda as long as remarkable personalities like yourself, Kweku Sintim Misa, has been doing, Kwesi Pratt Jr., Samia Nkrumah, and the family of Dr. Nkrumah. And I think it couldn't have been a prouder moment. But Honorable President, Excellency John Dramani Mahama is, for me, the boldest and the most courageous president we've had since Dr. Nkrumah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you too. Showing some love, man. So there you have it. Until we come back your way again with the edition of Unfiltered KSM. Thanking all of you and saying, see you at the Accra International Airport one of these days.
I appreciate it.